Today is all about tools. I want to focus really primarily today on shears and talk about shears and the what, the how, and the why behind shears. Next week, I'm going to be doing a lot of thermal tool tricks for you. And I think those are going to be essential, especially if you're going to be going back and doing a lot of dry cutting back in the salon. And I'm hearing a lot of noise out there in terms of people going back and doing some dry cutting. Number one, to save time. Number two, not possibly blow drying because of the virus itself. But that's going to be a socially right choice for your environment, for your state, for your CDC rules, policies, the protocol, whatever protocol you tend to adopt, that's going to be up to you. Hi, Taylor from Joseph's College. Glad that you're on, my dear. Paula, love your, hey, I'm glad you love our dry shears. I'm going to talk about wet versus dry. Hair by Frankie, good afternoon from the UK. How is the UK? I hope a lot of you were on Social-a-thon with us. We had some great talent on Sunday, and today is Tuesday. I simply had to take a day off yesterday and just kind of rejuice myself, but really more primarily spend time with family. And it was a great day on Sunday. I hope you guys were able to join us. Italy is on board. Marisa, how are you, Marisa? Good to see you, Peg. All right. Mandy from Chicago and India. Thank you so much for being on board. Vancouver, glad you're on board. Sonia, nice to see you again, Sonia. Paula, you won the shears on your class online. All right, great. You won some shears. I'm glad to hear that. New Orleans, how are you? Mexico, ¿cómo estás, Dela? All right. You have a sound problem? Make sure you check your mic. Check in with Andrew. Andrew can help you out with that. All right, let's talk about shears first. And I'm going to be changing the angle on my computer so that you can actually see what I'm going to do here. Philadelphia Hair Design. I love you guys. Glad you're on board. All right, so let's just take a look at some shears. I'm just going to bring this down for you. And first of all, you know, when you go through and you're actually picking a pair of shears, I think one of the most important things is you know, three things that you need to really take into consideration when you're selecting shears. And what that is, it's all comfort, cost, and most importantly is size. So when you're selecting a shear, take into consideration three things. Number one, what's comfortable in your hand. Number two, cost, what can you afford? And then most importantly, the size. So those are the three things that you need to take into consideration. So let's talk about some shears. So really size matters in this particular case. It's not so much about the length of a blade, but it's more about it's about the finger holes. These guys here are really critical. So you can see here on a pair of shears that I have here, you can see these have the finger holes inside of them. A lot of times I'm taking my finger holes out, and it's just a matter of what's comfortable in terms of your finger, your thumb, your ring finger, wherever you tend to hold it, whether it's that middle finger or your ring finger in most cases. You decide what's most comfortable for you. That's critical. So let me give you an example here. Okay, this is how a shear comes. All right, so let's talk about these finger holes. You'll find that you have two finger holes inside, in terms two casings. So let's pop out one. Okay, see how I popped that one out? So now there's only one left inside there. Let's pop out another one. And a lot of times when we purchase shears, we're not aware of this in terms of that. But really, this is what's comfortable. The most important thing, finger holes are vital. They're so vital. And I'm talking about your finger and thumb rings. This is what adjusts in terms of how you grip it, in terms of how it stays in. So a lot of times what you don't want is you don't want your thumb going all the way through. For example, if I take this out, which I like to do completely, now sometimes a lot of times the thumb is sliding through. And that can be uncomfortable because what happens is when you go to open and close, watch my hand, it will move. So it moves and it quacks rather than stabilizing the hand. And I'm going to give you some exercise later on. So I like to basically keep that one in. Sometimes I'm taking out. Now look how much my thumb is less inside. Andrew, because I have the computer tilted, make sure if there's any questions that come up, just address them for me, my friend. So the idea of this is that adjusting your finger grips are the first thing that you need to take into consideration. See, what this does is it's really important in terms of the amount of resistance you have. The less resistance there is, the better you're going to love your shear. So that's the first thing to take in consideration, my friends, is the idea of those holes in terms of how big you want them. I'm going to talk about swivel, Amanda. Thanks for talking about that. You want to upgrade the swivel. I'm going to give you the reason why swivel versus a standard lock handle in terms of it doesn't swivel. There's a big difference between the two. All right, so let's start out and let's talk about what we created for you in terms of, we're all about the ergonomics of the shear itself. I remember I started having problems with my hand. Now, shears will affect your hand, your thumb. They will affect your wrist, your elbow, and can also affect your shoulder. So ergonomically, you need to be aware of these positions of your body. So the idea is this, is that if I take my hand and I just do this, I'm going to stand up and I just raise my hand, okay? That is the normal position of my hand. Take a look at that. Now, here are 3 shears that I grew up with. Let's talk about that. First, they're slightly offset. Take a look at this. That's an even set. So if I hold this, I'm going to hold it and move it so you can see, okay? That is, that's even set. What do you mean by that, Sam? This handle here is even. See how that's even across, all right? Let's take another one. Now watch how I'm going to compare these two, and I'm taking it with the screw head. The screw head faces me, okay? And I'll talk about that in a moment. So let's place this one right over. So I've got the 2 screw heads right over each other. Now when you do this, look how this one now, it's slightly offset. So if you look at this, look at the angle of that, you can just start to see that angle's down. And now if I have this one, the angle of that is pretty flat. So what happened, we realized that we were taking our thumb and we were making it, pushing it to an even set. Here's an even set. Screw head always faces you when you put your hand in. So now what I needed to do, if this is the position, normal position of my hand relaxed, and that goes in my ring finger, now I was moving my thumb to ergonomically to a position that doesn't belong. You see that? Now watch what happens. Look at my thumb. Now look at my hand in terms of how I'm having to almost cock my wrist. See how I'm doing that? It's just really awkward when you're going and doing that. You'll feel a lot of strain on your tendon with that. But that was what we worked with, you know, that was the main thing that happened. So then we realized, well, let's create, now look at this handle. Okay, let's just take off the finger tension. These are my old shears, guys, in terms of what I used to cut with. And now I've really got into the ergonomics. Okay, that one doesn't want to come off. All right. So now let's take a look at this one. So if we look at this, let's just take a comb and place a comb on that. Look at the angle of that. So now can you see how that is an offset? So it's not even as this one is. Now what's happening is you're starting to see one offset and one even set, and you can really see that. So what it started to do was it started to make our thumb a little bit more comfortable. You see I'm not stretching my thumb is back, and I'm not getting so much pressure on my tendons here and feeling that in terms of carpal tunnel inside that thumb there. All right, now what happens is this. Let's just keep it up even set. So when you take a look at a pair of Sam shears, okay, the signature series is what I'm going to hold up. Okay, and like I said, I'm not here to sell anything, guys. I just want to talk about the what, how, and why behind shears. So now take a look at that handle. Look how this handle here is so much more far forward. So if I place the shears like this, look at the difference. See where that thumb is? It's way over here. So let me show you why. That's the normal position of my hand. So now when I place a forward set handle and a crane handle, okay, I place that in. Look at my thumb. It barely moved. Whereas I'm going to take my even, let's put offset in. Now that's the shape of my hand, but now watch what I have to do. I have to move my thumb over here. Now let's take and place this right over. And now take a look when I go through and I do this. Okay, that's ergonomically correct. But look what happened. What happened is look at this shear. It's open. All right, look at this. It's closed. So what happens is when I'm here and I ergonomically want to go through, okay, you got that, Andrew, there? Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew. What happens is my hand really is cocked, but you can just start to see how my tendons just start to pop out and then how they start to move when I'm going through doing that. Here's a ergonomically set forward set handle. Now watch. Now watch my tendon. Okay, when I do this, it hardly moves. Okay, and then my arm, let's talk about this. So if I'm here and I'm going to cut, now what happens is, look at my elbow, it's up. But now look at this particular case, I can drop my elbow. Okay, now the reason being is I'll hold it like that. Look how straight that is. Okay, so if I do this, go like this, okay, here's an slightly offset. Now watch. If I raise, they told me to raise my elbow so that I get my shear flat. See how flat that is? Now watch. If my elbow, keeping that all day puts pressure on my shoulder. So if I get tired and I start to drop my shoulder, the angle of the shear changes. So watch, let's do this. I want you to get this. Both of them are in, okay? So now watch me raise my elbow. That's to keep this blade, this offset flat parallel to the floor, but look what you did to the signature series shear. Okay, so now watch. When I drop my elbow, look at the signature series. Now it's straight. Okay, now let's open and close. Open and close. Look how little I move my thumb in order for me to close the signature series. The offset handle, I have to move my thumb 70% more to a position it doesn't belong in order for me to close it. And you can just start to see this. Now, Shamel, I hope I pronounced that right, my dear. Would you say the forward shears help relieve carpal tunnel? Yes. If you're working with even set and you're working with offset, these, if you're not holding them correctly, guys, now remember, a lot of people use these and they're comfortable with them. It's a matter of what you're comfortable with. Can lead to carpal tunnel. If you're having the issues, we've had people, I don't know if you can find some of that, Andrew, in terms of facts, but we've had people actually work with our shears that have wrist, and if any of you are on here, please let us know, but have had wrist and carpal tunnel issues, have picked up our shears and find that they're much more comfortable. They don't feel the pain. So once again, open and close. Let's just see this again here, okay? Watch. How many times a day do you feel that you open and close these shears? Watch. Open, close, open, close. So watch. Open, close. Immediately, the signature shear is closing. So here, I've got to go in, open, close, take the signature out. Now, I've got to move my thumb 70% more to a position it doesn't belong. So I'm extending my thumb open, extending it more back to close, whereas with a signature series or forward thumb set handle, crane handle, now I am not moving my thumb more in order to close that. That's a big difference in regards to that. Hi, Arianda. I'm sorry if Ariadna from Stockholm. I love Stockholm, one of my favorite cities. All right, so that's one thing. Now, double tang. The reason we did a double tang is because when you open, if you don't stabilize your top hand, then what happens, you see when I stabilize that, I get a really nice closure. Let me give you this, okay? If I don't stabilize it, watch it move side to side. So the shear will move side. See that? See how I'm quacking? See how it moves? So it's much more difficult to cut a straight line. But if I stabilize my top hand, now watch how that shear stays stable. It's not moving. So what we've done is place your pinky inside a double tang. That helps you to stabilize the hand so that you open and close and you're cutting more of a straight line. Some people like this, some people don't. If you don't like it, go to the traditional. Sam, are there any exercises that you can give us in order to exercise just moving the thumb and stabilizing this? Watch. Take your shear, hold your elbow, and now just because you're holding your elbow, turn your hand upside down and now just move your thumb, okay? Just move your thumb. Sometimes I'll place this on my lap and I'm watching TV and I'll just practice this way. Another thing that I used to do in the salon is place my hand up against a wall and I would just go in and just stabilize it. By my hand touching the wall, it would just stabilize and I would move that. So the more you can stabilize the top of the hand, the straighter the line you're going to get when you cut with one closure. If you don't, you find you're going back and you're going back and you're cutting to visually see a straight line. I hope this is helping you guys out in terms of that. Will this also relieve tension in traps and neck pain? The traps and the neck pain are coming from the elbow being lifted. So when the elbow is lifted, just do this for me now, guys. Everybody just do this at home. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to go in. If you keep your hands up like this, notice how we work all day like this. We're all day like this. And I don't know about you, but hold them up like this, guys. If you notice what you're starting to feel is you're starting to feel some pain move from your elbow. You're starting to feel this is slowly just moving up to your neck. But now watch. If I just drop that down, my elbow is 45 degrees. Just do this for me. This really helps to release the tension from my shoulder up to my neck by just simply dropping that 45 degrees. So the point that I'm trying to make is whenever you can drop your elbows, you want to drop your elbows. Andrew.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something because I thought I was getting carpal tunnel, and I went to 2 different doctors, and they almost actually did surgery on my wrist because they diagnosed me with carpal tunnel. It actually wasn't carpal tunnel. It was a pinched disc in my neck that was pinching a nerve, and it was causing like a pinching pain that went all through my shoulder, down through my elbow, in through my wrist. And so it actually had nothing to do with my wrist. And that pinch in my neck was because I was specifically taught, Sammy, to cut like this. And it put so much pressure up here in my neck, and I'd hang my head forward like we do as hairdressers.
Yes.
So I'd cut like this all the time. And it wasn't until I started working with you, and I'm like, well, Sam, we're always told we have to, cut with our elbows up to keep even with our parallel lines and stuff. And you said to me, he's like, okay, well, that's great. How long are you going to do that behind the chair? I was like, right. Yeah, good point. Like,
isn't it amazing?
I think probably a lot of people have been taught that.
Yes, we all. That's how I was taught. I was a beauty school. I never forget elbow up, elbow up, elbow up. And that's what's so great about these is the fact that that thumb is so forward set. Watch my elbow drop, and the shear didn't change positions at all. Still parallel with the floor. Someone had a picture, Lisa, in regards to Las Vegas. Our distributor for our shears are Salon Centric, okay, and RDA state RDA. So I'm not sure who your distributor is in your area, but check and see if they have some. Maybe there's an SSC that has some that will let you try for a half a day or something like that. Also, state RDA. There are a distributor also for our shears. And then if you are interested, you can go to those 2 distributors, or you can also visit our website if you're having issues getting a pair. All right. Eric Patterson, my friend, it's so great to see you. Eric, I hope you joined us on Sunday and enjoyed that day. All right. Now, let's move to length. Let's just talk about length. All right. I think length is another thing that establishes comfort. I don't know about you, Andrew, but I grew up on a really small pair of shears. It was basically a 5.5. And it's because in those days, I was doing a lot of precision cutting. But then when I got into point cutting, I started to move up in my lengths. I went from a 5.5 to a 6 and into a 7. So I want you to start thinking, guys, in terms of like a doctor. I'm not saying, whether you agree with me or not, doctors, no doctor, we're not, that's not my point. My point is this: length makes a difference. Once again, Sam, I'm not comfortable with a long pair of shears. Hey, guys, you buy a new pair of shoes, you're not comfortable with them at first. I guarantee you, when you put this handle, forward set hand on your hand, you're going to go, that's so uncomfortable. All right, give it a week. Pair of shoes, give it a couple days, and you'll discover that the pain and the comfortability of a forward set is just really amazing in terms of how it works. So let's talk about length. When we go back to the salon, okay, I'm going to suggest, and I'm out there talking a lot of lives and a lot of salons, I notice I'm following them and listening to after they've been to work for a week, they're coming back on live. They're talking about what's working, what's not working. It's going to be all trial and error, guys, when you're going back in terms of your protocol and how you're working. Some salons are having to wear gloves. Now, gloves are an issue if you're going to cut with gloves. So a hot little tip that I have is if you're cutting with gloves, they're uncomfortable because I guarantee you the looseness of the glove, you'll probably be cutting the glove and you're going to be ruining the edge of your shear. So hot little tip number 1, drop aside if you're going to wear gloves. Okay, I'm not saying you have to, guys, please. I'm not here to say what's right or what's wrong. I'm just giving you ideas here. If you're going to wear gloves, then I want you to take those finger covers or finger condoms, let's call it, sorry. But I want you to take a finger condom, drop down the size in gloves so it's nice and tight. Then take a finger condom over your index finger, a finger condom over your middle finger, and now that's extremely tight. Yet, We're going to encourage that you don't come in and cut like this. I'm going to encourage now, if you've been watching us in our tutorials, scan. Start scanning so your shear stays away from your fingers. Allow me to demonstrate here. Let's just take a section. Watch this. Okay, so I'm here. Okay, so I'm here. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take off some length, but watch how I'm doing this. Okay, give you this way. There we go. Look at my guiding blade. My action blade is the thumb blade. That's my action blade. The guiding blade is my ring finger blade. It's rested right on my middle finger. Now watch this. Watch how I'll just come in and move, and I just scan that. And I just move my shear right across that, just scanning. So I'm scanning now so that what happens is I'm not cutting the glove. I'm not cutting, but I get a soft edge. I get a soft edge that has a sense of precision to it, but it's a soft. You know you're texturizing a lot of hair after that. So what we suggest then is come in and scan. So you're holding the hair and you're doing this. So when you do that, a longer, medium length to a longer shear is going to be better for you so that you are able to stay away from that glove. And that's if you're going through and you're working with gloves. So really important that you understand that ergonomics are critical and length is critical. Some people, like if you look at my shears here, okay, let's just take a look and see what I have. Okay, here's 3 different lengths right here, and I'm going to come back and talk about swivel in a moment. But here's 3 different lengths. Okay, here's a 5.5. This is a 5. This is a 6. Let's see, 5. So this is a 5.75. I've got my 6.25. And I've got my 7. Okay. Now here is a 5.5. So 5.5, 5.75, 6.25, and 7. So Sam, when do you work with which one? This one here. Okay, I'll talk about swivel in a moment. But this one, I'll work with my precision short haircuts when I'm working around the ears. I prefer going with a smaller length, a smaller blade length. When I'm getting like into a little bit more like I'm point cutting, but I'm in that precision mode a little bit, I might be point cutting or scanning, and I'm scanning short hair, I might go up to a little bit. So here, either one of these are great for short hair or what's comfortable in your hand, but the length makes a difference. Once again, the 3 things that I said that are critical for you to take into consideration are comfort, cost, and most importantly, size. Okay. Then I go here. Anytime I'm working my bobs or my long haircuts, I'm going with my 6.25 or my 7s. And I love working with these in terms of, my longer layers, my deep point cutting. So point cutting, if I'm going to go in shallow with point cutting, I'm not going in so deep when I point cut, I'm going to go with a smaller blade. The more deeper I go, the longer the blade becomes because I want to get in there deeper. Let's go through, let's take a look. Okay. And let's go here, okay? So watch. If I'm going to point cut, look how deep my hand is to the length of the section. If I want a shallow point cut, my hand is sliding out. So now it wouldn't make sense to me to have a 7-inch when I'm here. So, the longer the blade is, the more you're going to go in, the chance of you cutting yourself. But if I come in with a smaller blade, a 5.75, and I'm doing this, now you can see I can stabilize the blade and just open and close where I'm at. Now, when you point cut, hot tip, touch, watch me touch. So I touch with my stable blade and I close my thumb as I'm moving out. So that way you're never going to cut yourself. As soon as I touch, I move out, I cut. As soon as I touch, I move out and I cut. Now, let's go deeper. If I go deeper into point cutting, look how deep I am. Look at that. Okay. Then what's going to be important is I'm going to need a longer blade so that I can get in deep and point cut. Deep and point cut. When we point cut, the angle, check it out. Move over here. The angle of the blade is critical. So see how the angle of my blade? It's almost flat. That's parallel. Now watch me change the angle. When the angle is steeper or parallel to the hair, I'm taking out weight. When the angle is more diagonal or flat, I'm going to release length. See how I release length? So it's a matter of understanding the length and the angle when you're holding your blade. So important, guys. You know, I just got to say, Andrew, that these are things that I've discovered over the years making these shears in terms of understanding length and et cetera. So important, Andrew.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the other things that comes up pretty often when people come to the booth, Sam, is talking about just their stature. You know, and I've seen quite a few comments in here like, well, I'm only 4'11", or like, I have tiny little hands, you know. And so people kind of, a lot of times they say, well, I have small hands, so I can't use a big shear. And I think what you're talking about right now is so important because, yeah, if you have smaller hands at first, if you pick up a 6 3/4 inch shear, it's going to feel like you've got a hammer, you know, it's going to feel pretty intimidating. But what we have to recognize is the handle is what needs to fit, not the blade size. The blade size is about what are we going to do with the shear. The handle is what we have to adapt to the sizing. So that's why we came out with the Streamline series. Yes.
Now let's talk about that, Andrew. So let me just pick up a Streamline here. Okay. The Streamline. Okay. So people are like, let me just bring it down. I'm going to show it to you. All right. So let's put Streamline. Okay, this over here is signature. Okay, so these are signature. Look at the difference in terms of the pivot. Okay, the screw head itself. All right, I'll talk about those in a moment, and those in a moment. Okay, over here on this side, bring them up so you can see them. Okay, there. Okay, great. That's a great view right there. All right, so let's talk about the Streamline. You know, in terms of, do I go, you know, Streamline, or do I go signature? We even have a line that we call the essential series, and I'll talk about that. But I think when we developed Streamline, what we wanted to do, a lot of comments that we were getting, and we listened to your feedback, by the way, were these are heavy, and the handle is so wide for my little hand. Okay, so Andrew just brought that up in terms of handle. Let's just take this one here. This is the 675. Okay, let's compare it to the 7. Okay, I'm going to place this right over the 7 and watch the handle. Okay, look at the handle of a Streamline. Look at the handle of signature. So you're looking in terms of here. I'm going to hold it this way so you can see. Let me see if I can. Yeah. Okay, now watch. So you can see that this one is not as wide, where the signature series is wider. So it's a matter of, look at the distance. Can you see that? Look at that. Okay, so that small amount of handle in terms of width, okay, makes a difference. So this shear here is great if you have small hands, small palms. So always take shears, place them in your palm. Look at that. Okay, now take a look. Watch how much palm I'm going to take in that. Okay, now watch my Streamline. Look how much I'm not covering as a palm. Okay, so you decide first. Do this when you pick up a shear. Do that. Find out what's comfortable for you. And then the weight of this is lighter. Okay, it's a little bit more lighter in terms of what it is. So you have to understand the difference in terms of our Streamline. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to please certain tribes out there in terms of that. So this is it's shaped a little bit differently, as you can see. Okay. Whereas the signature series is much more more lined up. Look at this. Okay, so this is why we call the Streamline. We just basically took the line of shears and we just streamed it down in terms of that. Same type of steel. We work with Japanese molybdenum alloy steel. And when you think about that, when you think about this molybdenum, I know that's hard to pronounce, but it's what they call on a. I'm trying to think, Andrew. They call it a. It is the hardship in terms of this.
Rockwell hardness, Sammy.
Thank you. What's it called again?
Rockwell hardness.
There we go. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Rockwell hardness. This is 60. Okay. Our signature series is 60, 61, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. This one here is I believe 53 to 57 in terms of that Rockwell hardness. So what does that mean? That just means the temper, the way that the steel is. Molybdenum alloy, and then over here, it's the same type of steel in terms of what we're working with. So, you know, the 60 to 61 on the Rockwell hardness scale. It really is more important in terms of the idea that they're made with Japanese, but the convex, and it has a polymer inside. So if you look inside, see that little white guy right there? Okay, that right there that's for the pivoting point, and it is a polymer lining, and it's inside the pivot point of the shears. And so what that does is that gives you an incredible smooth gliding action. Without this, what happens is the blades tend to rub together a little bit more. See, that's on both sides. If we didn't have that, the blades would rub together a little bit more, and therefore, because that you don't have that smooth gliding action, then you find yourself sharpening the shears a little bit more. So the tension adjustment on these, this is my signature series here, our signature series. So take a look at the tension adjustment. Okay, this was interesting, and sometimes a lot of people find this uncomfortable to work with because it loosens up as the day goes on, but there's a purpose for this. Allow me to explain this to you. Okay, so the idea behind this is when we put this leaf system, this is a leaf system, it's this leaf spring tension system. What it does is it gives you the opportunity to evenly distribute your proper tension across the length and the width of the blades. So the idea is this: if I hold this like this, you can see there's a space of air in here. Okay, what happens is when people tend to tighten their shears, here's a normal flat screw tension I'll talk about in a moment. Okay, when people would tend to tighten these, they would tighten them so tight that the blades would rub together, and therefore what happened, the shear would become dull faster. Two reasons why we did this. Number one, this whole polymer lining and the leaf tension system protects the shears from going dull faster. And when you tighten these, it's one click at a time. You'll hear a little click, a little click, a little click. The idea is to hold this, and then when you're holding this, all I simply want you to do is lift this up, and it should stay up. If it collapses, allow me to just loosen this completely. I'm doing one click at a time, always one click at a time, not this. Okay, now look how that collapses. You see how that's collapsing? I guarantee if your shear is doing that, you're cutting like this. You're pulling away to get the hair off. Your shear appears to be dull. You need to check these tension screws on a daily basis when you come in the morning, especially now if you're going to be dry cutting. So now watch what Sam's going to do. Let me do this. I'm going to do this up face to you so you can see. Okay, look out. Look, I'm holding it. Okay, and let's see if I can. This is the whole time I've been home trying to figure out. There we go. All right, now watch. Do this. If it does this, guys, you need to tighten your tension screw. No matter which way you hold it, you need to tighten your tension screw. Watch. You need to tighten. Look how it just goes back, okay? So now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go one click at a time. I did 3 clicks. Let's see what happens. Nope. Okay. I'm going to go one click. I'm going to go 2 more clicks. Let's see what happens. See, it's still falling. Do this on a daily basis. It's so important. Watch now. Okay, I can feel it's getting tighter. You can see it's not completely falling down. Okay, here we go. This should start to hold up a little. Oh, look at the separation I got. Okay, you see the separation I'm getting? So I want that separation to be about 22.5 or 45. It's going to be your call. Watch when I get this. Okay, look at that. Okay, now that's great. Now it's a matter of put it in your hand and find out, is that comfortable for my thumb? Am I having to use too much pressure to close that? If you are, back off one. So I backed off one click, and look, it still stays open. Okay, so that's what I want you to do every day, making sure that you are checking these, guys. So important. Sam, go ahead, Andrew.
One of the questions that's coming up pretty significantly is, a lot of people, they can only maybe afford to invest in a single shear at this point. So if people are kind of looking for that workhorse, do everything shear, what would you recommend as far as like size and,
Our top selling shear. What's the top selling size that we have? I believe
625.
It's 625. So that's what, and especially in today's world, I think, Andrew, a lot of people are doing a lot of point cutting. They're doing a lot of layering, a lot of compression cutting, lots of layers going on. So with a 625, here's my 625. I've got a nice comfortable length. I'll place it in my palm of my hand so you can see the length there. Okay, I'm going to bring it back down. Okay, now you can start to see how that fits. That's a 625. Now let's compare that to a smaller one. Let's go to my 575, and let's just place that there. Look at the difference. Okay, you can just see the difference there in terms of length. So this is our number one selling length that seems to be comfortable out there. So if you say, well, Sam, I'm going to move from a 5.5, I want to move up, I would not recommend jumping to a 7. You're probably, it takes a while to jump. To jump maybe from a 5.5 or 5.75, I'd suggest jumping up to a 6.25, Andrew. Okay, is this something you
I wouldn't kind of go the same direction. That's usually what we say, just even at the show booth, if we're at a hair show or something. If someone comes up, typically when someone says, hey, I just have to, purchase one shear, what can I use as my workhorse shear?
Yes.
We usually go there. And there was actually a student that had asked as well, because, of course, they typically start off with 5.5, 5.75 inch size. And so
right.
Typically, we're saying when you're ready to upgrade, go to that 6.25 inch size.
Yes. Now we have there's 3 types that we have. We have a signature series. Okay, I want to just talk about that. Okay, we have a signature series shear. We have an essential. We then came out with our essential series shear, and then we came out with our. I'll move these guys back. Okay, and then we came out with our Streamline series. Okay, now this is essential. All right, take a look at. There's your screw head. Okay, now take a look at that screw head compared to a Streamline, compared to signature. Okay, so we have 3 different pivot points in terms of this. So allow me to just walk you through the signature series. I've talked about that. That's a leaf tension system. And then what happens is, see that leaf, when I tighten it, that leaf, it flattens. Okay, but as the day goes on, it kind of bows. It does this. So that's saving the edge of your blade. So that's why I'm recommending with this one, it's very temperamental every day. Just check your tension. And we talked about how to do that. Okay, this is the essential. Now, all of these come with the little tighteners in terms of how you work with them. I've got them hooked up over there to my scissor case. I could show you those in a moment when I go and show you how to oil your shears. So that is the essential. And I'm going to talk about the difference. This is our Streamline. Okay. So now price point. Here's what we want to do. And Andrew just brought this up in terms of, I can't afford a signature. That's, the signature, people going, oh gosh, it's so expensive. All right. Well, then what we did was we gave you something more very essential. We believe in all of these being awesome shears. But what we wanted to do was satisfy the price point in terms of a tribe, and a tribe. So the difference between them is basically the polymer lining. You're going to see this here. This one here is my Streamline. Okay. You can see the polymer lining. This one here is my essential. You can see it doesn't have the polymer lining. Okay. Signature, polymer lining. So essential is less expensive. Why? This is more of when we think about the steel, we're talking about a 440C Japanese stainless steel. That's the essential. Okay. So you're going to find that because of the stainless steel, the Japanese stainless steel, and by the way, Japanese shears are the best in terms of steel. We've discovered that. We've done our research. So we maintain Japanese steel throughout all the series. But what we did was we took out the polymer lining on these shears. So now these shears, the essential, also measure on our Rockwell hardness scale. They measure a 58, 59. So that's the difference in terms of the steel. There's a difference. So because of those factors, the price is less expensive. Now, these are the Essential series. They also feature convex blades. And they also feature the click set Streamline tension system. So that's more of a flat screw. So these shears, I love my Essentials, but once again, it's just a matter of cost. Let's go into the Streamline. Streamline, once again, you are looking at a polymer lining. You're looking at a Millennium alloyed steel, that Japanese steel, and you're looking at a forward set handle. Yet, watch the handle. It's not as wide. So now you're talking about less expensive, medium, high. It's just a matter what kind of car do you want to drive, or what kind of car can you afford, basically. But remember those three key things I gave you. It's comfort, cost, and size in terms of your shears. Okay, how are we doing out there? Is this helping you guys out? Just give me a yes if this is helping you out in terms of that. Which one is a great price? I think, Andrew, when we talk about these in terms of great price, I think we're getting a lot of people that are leaning towards our Streamline. That's a great price. Essential, once again, what's affordable?
I mean, with 34% off, that's everything's pretty affordable right now.
Yeah, right now we do.
I know Sammy doesn't want to, talk too much sales, but I do want to tell you is we're having a sale through the end of the month, and it's 34% off everything. So, something like our 7-inch dry cutting shear, that's usually, I think, a $425 shear. It's only $264 right now. So it's pretty good prices.
Speaking of that, Andrew, I think a lot of people are going to be going back. I was talking about it earlier, going back and doing a lot of dry cutting. So this is the 7-inch Signature Series dry cutting, people. And the people have asked me, Sam, I've seen you use this shear on dry and wet. So is it for dry or is it for wet? Well, let me explain what we did, all right? In the salon back in the 80s, I was using one shear for everything. My favorite shear. We all fall in love with one particular shear. I was using that on wet and dry. I grew up cutting hair wet, keeping it wet. When the hair is wet, it's more supple. So the blade going through it it's like butter. When the hair is dry, the blades themselves are working twice as hard to get through that hair because it's not as supple. So therefore, I found when I started doing a lot of dry cutting back in mid-80s, I started finding I was sending my shear in quite a bit to get sharpened. Like instead of twice a year, I was sitting it 3 to 4 times a year. And normally I would recommend at least send them in minimum twice a year, guys, depending on especially the shear that you're using the most. So what we did was we figured out, let's come out with a dry cutting shear. Now, what makes it different? Number one, if you look at our 7-inch, this is the dry cutting blade. If you look at this, I'll see if I can get this at an angle. The top blade on this, if you look at it, it's got this little kind of crease that comes up. So this is a sword blade. So it has more weight to it because of the way that it's curved up on the top. So it has more weight to it. Therefore, it's able to get through that dry hair much easier than our non-dry cutting blade. Let's see if you can see it. I'm not sure if they can see it, Andrew. But you can start to just see the thickness of the dry cutting blade. Look at this. See how that bevels out more? Look on this side. See how that's flat and how that bevels out more, curves out more. That's the sword blade. And then we went 7-inch because I wanted a longer length blade so that you could actually get through the section. Whereas when the hair is wet, you could use, a smaller blade, and it's much easier to get through it. So also with dry cutting, I was doing a lot of compression. So therefore also a longer blade. Now, think about this, guys. When you go to a doctor, you go to the dentist, I don't know how many tools I watch them take out. God, the narrow to get back and wider to get here. It's just amazing. And I just admire them. So think about this. Can you watch, when I was behind the chair, a client would say, God, Sam, you used 4 different pair of shears to cut my hair. Why? Why didn't you just use one pair? Every shear has length, has its purpose. Dry versus wet has its purpose. A blending shear, a invisible blender, the idea of an invisible blender versus a reversible blender versus a thinning shear. They all have a different purpose. A razor has a different purpose. And that's what's so important to understand is, don't get yourself. I find myself, if I had a 625 and that was my favorite, I'm working around the ear, it's much more difficult to work that around the ear. A shorter blade is easier. So picking it up. I want to share this also with you. highly recommend, because of you now getting ready back, or those of you that are back in the salon, have two trays, tray A and tray B. So 2 sets of tools. That's right. So client number 1 gets tray A. Now this goes to get sanitized by the sanitized person, or you're placing it under a UV light or whatever you need to do to sanitize properly, whatever your protocol is. And then out comes tray number 2. And the client is seeing this. You're doing this in front of the client, guys. I think that's so important. I had a comment. My wife has her mother-in-law, my mother-in-law has a salon, all right? And the comment that I was talking to my wife, I said, how are they doing in the salon? There was a comment made, oh gosh. There was a comment made to my mother-in-law. A client said, a stylist said, one of my clients just saw that the stylist did not sanitize the bowl when she was done, and saw another client go to the bowl. So here's why these protocols are so important, because the clients are watching. See, the reason we're doing these things are for the sake of the client, because they are watching. Are these people washing their hands before they come to me? Are they sanitizing their tools? One of the greatest little tips that I picked up while on this whole thing is these brushes. You know, how are you sanitizing your brushes? I recommend what you do is you have a little mesh bag. Girls, the little lingerie bag that you put your lingerie in, you throw it in the washer. So I would recommend that when you work with a brush, when it's done, it all goes in those mesh bags, okay? Then that mesh bag has your name on it. It gets dumped into the Barbicide tub, and your name's on it, and the brushes are in the bag. They're getting sanitized for 10 minutes. Then it comes out, and now they're dried off, and they're ready for the next client. I think that's so important. And it's the same thing with these trays I'm talking about in terms of shears and being able to do that. Go ahead, Andrew.
Sammy, are you going to talk about the blending shears and different kinds of blending shears?
You bet I am, buddy. I want to move into that now. Okay.
Sweet.
Let's talk about our blending shears. Okay. Now, guys, I'm not here to change your beliefs, all right? But I've discovered over the years that how can I make my work easier for me? That's so important. How can I make my work easier? So when I started picking up a blending shear, I'll never forget this. I picked up a blending shear in my salon when I had my salon, and one of my stylists came up to me, he goes, "Isn't that cheating, Sam?" I go, "What are you talking about?" She was watching me work a blending shear, scissor over comb on this guy, and I was undercutting him. And she said, "Sam, isn't that cheating?" I go, "I didn't know that you could cheat in this industry in terms of when it comes to cutting." I said, "It's a matter of simplicity." So what I was doing was I was working shear over comb, but I was working with a blending shear. And the reason being, guys, I'm not perfect. You know, I was getting, when I would work with my blunt shear, I was getting lines, and a lot of it was because I wasn't moving my comb. I'd stabilize and cut, but I have to keep it moving all at once. Because when you elevate, if you elevate here and that comb goes there like that, that hair is elevated horizontally, and you close at that point, you're going to have a step. What you need to do is keep the comb moving so that when you continually close, the hair is elevated above a diagonal line, it's going to fall soft with no edge. So that's why if you're getting steps over scissor over comb, it's because you're not moving through. Okay? So thank you for that, Dory. Excuse me. So blending shears, all right? These are reversible blenders. Now, there's a reason why I call these reversible. Redken, I was so fortunate with my travels, and being the global artistic ambassador for Redken, I've had the opportunity to travel the world. And as I traveled the world, what happened is I was in Malaysia, and I was walking with the great Nohiro Nomura. Nohiro, I miss you, my friend. His family had something like over 200 salons. So I went to their flagship salon, and I was training their salon the Redken way. But I watched them take a pair of blending shears, which they used a lot because Asian hair is so stiff. There's hardly any pliability to it. So they would cut a one-length bob. Imagine this, guys. They would cut a one-length bob, and what they did was they would go in, and as they cut it, okay, get your hand up, right? okay, they would cut this, but then what they would do is they would take their blending shear. They would take the blunt blade, place it on the bottom, just place it underneath the length they cut, and they would go like this, about a half an inch above to an inch above. And then what happened was, I go, you know, that shear was meant to be held like this. See the screw head? That's how it's meant to be held. Look at the blunt blade. It's on top. But they would take it, they would flip it over, and they would put their hand in an awkward position. I go, Nahiro, why are you doing that? And what they explained to me was, when they did that, don't mind my fingers, guys, I'm not going to cut myself. When they did that, when they would go to close, they would get the blunt line underneath, and they would get texture on top. So it made it easier for them to blow dry and manipulate that hair to go under. And I thought, wow, but I didn't believe it. So when Nahiro had a one-length bob, he did it on this side, okay? Just once, boom, boom, boom. Then he didn't do it on this side. Then he said, you blow dry that side. So I blow dried it. And I thought, oh, I'll show Nahiro. So I took out my Denman brush at the time. Like, I got that puppy to go under. But then when I came on this side, he goes, now blow dry this side. I took out the Denman, thinking I had to work as hard as I did over here. I just went, and I just looked at it and I go, oh my gosh, the hair was more pliable. So where they placed that blunt action was critical in their belief system. So then he said, watch this. He took another client that came in with a bob. He turned it over and held it the way it's supposed to be held, with the screw head facing me. He put his hand in. Now look at the blunt blade. The blunt blade now is on top. So then he went in and he did this. He lifted it up, put the teeth underneath it. He did this. And I said, why did you do that? He goes, now flip it up. So he placed the blunt line on top, but you still couldn't see it. But the texture was more underneath. A more massive texture was underneath. So when I hit it with a round brush, it simply flipped up. So here's the analogy then. This is why, if you look at this, oh gosh, Andrew, look at me. I get excited. All right, so if you look at this, look at how this comes out. Now watch, when I flip that over, look at that. So what we did was we made what we call reversible blending shear. I made a note of that in my journal, never knowing I was going to make tools, but understood I wanted to start to adopt that in my belief system. So what I did was we focused on making a blending shear. Some people call this a thinning shear. I recommend you call it a blending shear, thinning shear, thinning. Ooh, that word itself can scare people. But if I say I'm using a blending shear, oh, okay, I'm going to get a more blending action. The choice of words are valuable. So that was critical in terms of the blending shear, why we made it reversible, so that you can control the direction in terms of where the hair moves. Okay, left and right-handed. As a matter of fact, a lot of our shears come in left and right-handed. Then we thought, and I thought this was pretty cool. I went to my shear engineer and I said, I want to make a new texturizing shear. I said, we're going to start doing shags. And this was years ago. And he thought I was crazy. And I thought, no, here's what I want to do. I want to go through, okay, and I want this blade here. Watch my finger. I'm put pressure on it, and I'm just going to come out. And look at that. I don't cut my finger, okay? Most cases, I won't do that to this shear here. I'm going to cut my finger. Ooh, that's pretty sharp. I wouldn't do that, okay? Look at that. I even put my finger on that. Look at that, okay? So the idea was, I told him, let's over sharpen this blade. And he said, why? Because I discovered, guys, any shear, excuse me, I'm going to use my hand. Don't worry, okay? When I go to close, if the shear is dull, it pushes the hair. You ever notice that? Say yes if you're with me. It pushes the hair, and you get more of a curved line, and then you're going back in and recutting till you see visually a straight line. Just say yes if you're with me, okay? So what happens is, I told him, over polish this blade. He goes, Sam, you're crazy. You're not going to be able to cut the hair. I go, this is where I want it sharpened. So what we did was, I'm going to take it down so you can see, okay? So when we made the Invisablend, we really wanted a shear that extracts weight, which is what all of these types of shears do. I'll talk about that in a moment in terms of how much. But we wanted to extract weight without leaving lines. The most difficult hair to layer are blondes. And I told him that. I said, they're going to be layering, doing shags. Layers are going to be coming back. And what I want to do is create a shear that's going to be able to take those lines out of especially blondes. He goes, Sam, I don't understand. I go, well, when we close it, it's going to push the hair, and therefore you're going to get more of a scalloped effect. instead of a straight tooth effect. And he's like, oh my gosh, I get it. So this is a 23 teeth pattern. It has convex edges in it. So you can just start to see these convex edges right in through here. I'm not sure if you can, but the edges are convex. So what happens is by going in and pushing it, you're getting more scallop, scallop, scallop. So you're really able, watch this, I'm going to do it here. Let me see, guys, I'm going to grab a blonde mannequin. Do I have a blonde mannequin? I'll do it here, and you'll see it, all right? So let's do it here. All right, I'm going to get her in some light. Okay, let's go like right about right there, okay? So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a big mistake right here, okay? All right. Now, this is these blondes that I'm talking about, guys, where you know what I'm talking about. You go in and layer them, and you see every layer. And then you're going back in there, and you're point cutting it. You're trying to soften it with a pair of blending shears, or what you might call thinning shears. Watch. Now, that is a mistake, okay? You can see there's a line right here, okay? Right there. You can just start to see that line right there. Now, watch what I'm going to do. Whenever you see a line, place the palm of your hand here, use the spine of the comb, come through, just lift that up. Look at the line, look at the line. Okay, now look at the bluntness. Look at that bluntness. There it is. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the Invisablend shear. Here's the Invisablend, and I love using this. You're getting a slide cutting action. So now watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to come through. Look at how you don't see lines. I'll put it up here and see. Now look how watch. When I close this, watch it move. It's going to move that direction when I close. Watch. You see the hair kind of move that direction, so it pushes the hair. So what you're getting is you're getting these little scallops, and you just don't see anything there. Let's take a look at it this way. Okay. And you just start to see how that line just starts to, it's not there. So when we comb through this, I start to lose that edge, and it becomes very, very seamless in terms of that. So that's why we came out with what we refer to as an Invisablend shear. You get these invisible layers. Andrew, anything to add to that? Invisablend, it happens to be one of my favorite shears. A lot of people are saying that it saves them in their haircuts, especially now that they're layering hair, and that's the Invisablend. So here you have a 32 teeth. Here in the Invisablend, you have a 23 teeth. So now, which one do you think removes more hair? That's right. 32 is going to remove more hair. You're going to not remove as much with this one. So that's the difference between these. So, I mean, blending shears are great. Some people don't believe in blending shears. You know, I really believe that fashion designers understand the limits and capabilities of silk. They understand the limits and capabilities of wool. They understand the limits and capabilities of cotton. So I guarantee you when they cut a pair of a silk cloth or a wool cloth, they're probably using different shears. But let's take that to hair, different textures of hair. Fine, medium, coarse, that defines texture. You know, you need to understand with coarse hair, I'm going to need to texturize, use more texturizing techniques to get a seamless type of layer. Fine hair, depending upon the color also. So if you understand the limits and capabilities of your tools and understand the limits and capabilities of the fabric you're working with, that will determine what tool you're going to work to match up that fabric. I hope I'm making some sense here. That's what's so critical, guys. And then, you know, people go, God, you have so many shears. Over the years, yes, I can't tell you how much. If I go back and I look at my big case I have of shears, because I collected every pair of shear I've had over the years. You know, my wife's like, what are you going to do with those shears? I go, when I'm gone, you can sell them on eBay. All right. So let's talk about sharpening. Andrew, do you have anything to add there on the texturizing shears? All right. He's having a sip of his coffee. All right, which is what I'm going to do. All right, let's talk about how are we doing, guys? Are you learning? Okay. Yeah, hair is a fabric, Bella. It sure is. So you have to understand the fabric you're working with. You know, there's one thing that Andrew and I talk about on curly hair, you know, because that's another class in itself. Check out one of our DVDs, Curlicious. As a matter of fact, Andrew, I think they're all still free on YouTube.
They sure are.
But the idea behind it is curly hair. We talk about this phrase, and we picked it up from a great colleague of mine, Brent Borson. Always give credit where credit is due. Is he talks about how the ends need friends. So we don't recommend you use texturizing shears on curly hair, especially on the ends, because now you just made them frizzy. They need more weight. Now you can probably use if you want to kind of get a little bit more expansion, you can point cut, but I'd suggest point cutting more like at an angle so that you're building edges with more weight. Andrew, anything to add?
Yeah, sorry, my internet failed for a little while, so I'm
no
back now. But
it happened to me. It happens to you too.
It does. It's weird. It happened in the exact same time last week when Justin was on. So
oh wow,
bizarre. Hey, did you happen to touch on sanitation at all with shears?
Oh no, I'm going to get into oiling them right now. But once I teach them how to oil and take care of that, if there's anything that do you have something you think is important in sanitation, please?
Yeah. So here's the thing: is there's kind of two answers to this, because leaving them soak for a long time in barbicide, we wouldn't recommend that personally, because that's going to take a toll on the materials in the shears. We would recommend that you sanitize your shears at the minimum amount that you can to make them safe. But the second part of the answer is you have to consult what your state tells you, because it's not just about safety. It's also about being in alignment with your state board requirements. So we can tell you, yes, barbicide and alcohol will fully sterilize your shears, but it depends on what your state requires you to do. So check in with that. After you sanitize them, make sure you rinse them perfectly clean, because you don't want that stuff drying and sitting on your shears. And then Sammy is going to teach you how to oil them. After you rinse them, dry them thoroughly, and then follow Sam's recommendation for oiling them.
Yes, Chris is asking a question here, Andrew. Can alcohol wipe down be enough to sanitize your shears? I think it certainly can, but I think clipper side is great. If you're clipper side is great. I'm going to use an oil here. But Andrew, how do you feel about that in terms of alcohol?
So yeah,
or barber
up until now, we've always said that an alcohol wipe down should be sufficient. It has to be over 70% alcohol for sure. So alcohol should be sufficient. That being said, this is what barbicide and clipper side is specifically designed for. So we'd recommend just getting the barbicide, getting the clipper side would, especially right now, because we have to be very, very sure that we're perfectly clean. Probably just best to invest in the barber side.
Yes. Question, is this going to be available to see later? Yes. All of this goes over to our YouTube channel, and you can watch it later. Not a problem. All right. Last thing I want to share with you. I'm just going to go over a little time here, Andrew, on this. Last thing I'm going to share is oiling. I recommend you oil your shears on a daily basis, guys. At the end of the night, before you walk out, just take a moment, oil your shears. Allow me to share with you how. What I like to do is I loosen up the tension screw just slightly. So I loosen it up a little bit, so therefore it just collapses, okay? Then what I want you to do is you're going to take oil, okay? And there's all kinds of oil out there. In our shears, we give you some oil. This comes with the Artist series. But you can take any kind of oil, a needle of oil I like to use when I go in, and you want to go into the pivot point. So now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you an angle here so you can see, okay? I'm going to take inside the pivot point. I'm just going to drop this oil inside here. See, then I keep this open. Now let the oil go inside. And then what's happening is that oil, any hair that's inside there, because that hair can create friction, the more it builds up, any hair that's inside there, watch how the oil is coming out on the opposite side. Do you see it? See how it's coming down this side? So now if there's any hair in there, we'll see if there's little granules of hair. Oh, I see a couple. They start to actually work their way out. So what happens is, what I don't want you to do, some people will take these things apart and clean them. You can take, if you have the time, you want to do that, great. but then make sure you're putting them together back properly. There's a little washer in there that you can easily use if you're not careful. So see, what happens is you just start to get these little grains of hair that come out. Then once you've done that, I want you to do it on the opposite side. So now there's that little Teflon there that we come through. Look at what I'm doing. So see how it just comes out? Okay. And let it work out. There are some little ones there. You start to see them. Now those build up. See, I oil mine pretty much on a regular basis, so there's not much there. Okay. Then what you're going to do is, then I want you to just open and close a couple times. Just open and close. Tighten it back up to where it belongs. Okay, that's where it belongs. Now just open and close. Okay. Now once you're here, all I want you to do is just put them back down. Whenever you set your shears down, you must set them down closed. Okay. If you set them down open, I guarantee the slightest little bump, you're going to get a nick right there. Yes, it makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference when you set these down. So you have to set them down closed. Set them down over the night, leave them like that. Then when you come back in the morning, take a chamois cloth. This is a chamois cloth that you use to wash your car. At least I do. Now what I want you to do is just, a lot of times by rubbing this away from you, don't rub it to you, you're going to cut yourself. A lot of times if you nick your shear, the first thing I don't want you to do is pick it up and close it and start, oh, did I nick it? No, you do that, you're going to put the nick in deeper. What I want you to do is leave it open, put some oil on it, and now just come through and rub away from you and just really create a lot of friction. With a chamois cloth, believe it or not, based upon the nick itself, you could get that nick out just, if it's slight, you could get it out. Now, oh, those are feeling really good. So this is something that I really, really recommend that you do on a daily basis again. Now, these things feel like butter. Oh, yeah. So if your shears feel dull, oil them. If your shears feel dull, make sure you're checking up your tension screw. That's critical, guys. So I really hope that you learned something. Hi, Kelly Davenport. How are you, my dear? I miss you. Great to see you. So shears, guys, are really, really important. Remember, those are the tools that you work with. The three things that I talked about. It's comfort, size, comfort, what's most comfort to you, what can you afford, cost, and then size. And then don't forget the little ring thing, the little finger rings inside, you can take these out. We put 2 inside each one. So take one out, see if that's comfortable. If that's not comfortable, take the second one out. But do what's most comfortable for you. And then highly recommend a forward set. Yes, I know it's going to be comfortable in the beginning because like a brand new pair of shoes, they're not comfortable in the beginning. We talked about barber oil, clipper oil. We actually have a shear oil that comes in with our artist series. And then when you're at shows, pick up shear oil. Highly recommend that you do that. Everything is so important, really, really important in terms of taking care of your tools. Anja just said, I use microfiber eyeglass wipes. Those are great too. What type of oil? We talked about that. So I certainly hope that this has helped you out, guys, today, just talking about shears. Next week, I'm excited because I'll go into thermal tools. I'll talk about thermal tools, but I'm going to show you a lot of thermal tricks. I think, if you're going to be doing dry cutting, we hope that we address that. Remember tray A, tray B, sanitize. And then next week, let's talk about thermal tools and give you some thermal tricks, working with a flat iron, working with curling irons, and working with a 2-in-1 Marcel iron also.